The massive crystal chamber sparkled with light from 1,000 different suns. Station Nexus floated in the void between galaxies, its walls made from living crystal that grew stronger with each passing year. Today marked the 500th meeting of the Galactic Council, and beings from every corner of known space had gathered for this historic moment. Ambassador Zekthor adjusted his breathing apparatus as he studied the enormous circular room. 847 different species had seats in this chamber. Some floated in tanks of liquid, others needed special atmosphere domes. A few existed as pure energy, their thoughts translated into sound waves that everyone could understand. But one seat remained empty, just as it had for the past 200 years. The Earth seat. Zekthor's 4 eyes focused on the simple metal chair that sat in the human section. No decorations, no special equipment, just an ordinary chair that no one had ever seen occupied. His tentacles curled with frustration as he thought about the waste. Every other species in the galaxy had fought hard for their place on the council. Wars had been waged for the right to sit in this chamber. Yet the humans, who had been granted membership without even asking for it, had never once bothered to show up. The 500th session of the Galactic Council will now begin, announced Secretary Vixana. Her voice echoed through translation devices in 800 different languages. The massive insect-like being had served as secretary for over 3 centuries, her perfect memory recording every word spoken in these halls. The usual business began. Trade disputes between the mining worlds of Sector 7, boundary negotiations for the expanding Centauri colonies, a request from the Thrakari Empire to establish new military bases near the Outer Rim. Zekthor barely listened. He had heard it all before, year after year, decade after decade. Finally, the moment he waited for arrived. I call for the annual motion regarding Earth's membership status, Zekthor announced, rising from his seat. His voice carried the authority of someone who had served on the council for over 50 years. For 212 years, the human seat has remained empty. Not once has Earth sent a representative to our sessions. Not once have they responded to our communications. I move that we revoke their membership immediately. Murmurs filled the chamber. Some beings clicked their approval, others buzzed with excitement. The motion had become a tradition, brought up every year like clockwork, and every year it passed with little discussion. Is there any opposition to this motion? Secretary Vixana asked, though everyone knew the answer. Silence filled the chamber. No one spoke for the absent humans, no one ever did. The motion passes by unanimous consent, Vixana declared. Earth's membership in the Galactic Council is hereby revoked, effective immediately. She made a note in her records, just as she had done 211 times before. Tomorrow the paperwork would be filed. Next week, it would be forgotten. Next year, some other ambassador would bring up the same motion again because somehow Earth's membership always got quietly renewed through bureaucratic processes that no one quite understood. As the session continued, Zekthor found his attention drifting to the empty chair. He wondered, not for the first time, what had happened to the humans. When they first achieved faster-than-light travel, Earth had been contacted according to standard galactic protocol. They had been invited to join the council. They had accepted. But then, nothing. Some species believed the humans had destroyed themselves in a nuclear war. Others thought they had simply lost interest in galactic affairs and turned inward. A few conspiracy theorists claimed that Earth had never really existed at all, that it was some kind of administrative error that had grown too large to correct. Zekthor preferred a simpler explanation. The humans were probably just primitive. Many species went through phases where they thought they were ready for galactic civilization, only to realize they were in over their heads. It happened more often than most people realized. 12 billion light-years away, Lieutenant Jake Morrison sat in front of a wall of screens watching every moment of the council session. The underground facility beneath the Nevada desert hummed with quiet activity as dozens of technicians monitored communications from across the galaxy. Jake had been assigned to council observation duty for 3 years now, and he never got tired of watching the aliens debate. They voted us out again, He called over to his partner. Captain Lisa Hayes looked up from her own console, where she was reviewing intelligence reports from the Andromeda sector. What's that make it now? 212 times? 213, Jake corrected. Though the count might be off, these guys love their paperwork, Lisa smiled. She was analyzing cargo manifests from a Centauri trading post, looking for patterns in military equipment shipments. It was tedious work, but someone had to do it. Earth's survival depended on knowing what every major power in the galaxy was up to. Think they'll ever figure it out, she asked. Jake shrugged. Maybe, eventually, but probably not anytime soon. They're too busy arguing about mining rights and trade routes to notice what's really happening. He switched his view to a different camera angle, watching as the council moved on to other business. A border dispute between two minor species, a request for aid from a planet dealing with natural disasters. The usual mix of politics and bureaucracy that kept the galaxy running. None of them knew that humans had been watching every session for over 2 centuries. None of them suspected that Earth's intelligence network stretched across every major star system in the galaxy. They saw an empty chair and assumed absence. They never considered that the chair was empty by design. Jake made notes in his daily report, just as hundreds of other agents were doing across the galaxy. Every alien species had been studied. Every military formation had been analyzed. Every political alliance had been mapped. Earth knew more about galactic civilization than any single species in the Council. The empty chair would remain empty, for now. But Jake knew that wouldn't last forever. Someday, Earth would need to take its place in galactic affairs. When that day came, humanity would be ready. The aliens had no idea what was coming. Dr. Amanda Cole walked through the corridors of the most secret facility on Earth. 5 miles beneath the Colorado mountains, the Terran Strategic Assessment Division had been operating for over 200 years. The walls were lined with screens, showing star maps, alien ship movements, and communication intercepts from across the galaxy. This was the nerve center of humanity's greatest achievement and its biggest secret. Amanda stopped at her favorite viewing station. Holographic displays floated in the air around her, each one showing a different part of the galaxy. She could see Thrakari battle fleets conducting training exercises near the Vega system, trade convoys from the Centauri Republic, moving supplies to their outer colonies, even the private communications of council members discussing their latest political schemes. Director Cole, called out Agent Ryan Brooks as he approached her station. He looked tired after his long journey back to Earth, but there was satisfaction in his eyes. I have the full report from Kepler Station. Amanda nodded and gestured for him to continue. Ryan had spent 6 months working as a maintenance technician on one of the galaxy's busiest trading posts. To everyone around him, he was just another human drifter looking for work in the outer systems. Nobody suspected that he was one of Earth's most skilled intelligence agents. The Thrakari are planning something big, Ryan said as he activated his personal data pad. I managed to access their secure communications while repairing their computer systems. They're moving heavy weapons to staging areas along the neutral zone. My best guess is they're preparing for a major offensive against the Altarian Collective. Amanda made notes as Ryan spoke. This was exactly the kind of intelligence that made Earth's strategy so effective. While other species focused on grand diplomatic gestures and formal treaties, humans gathered information from the bottom up. Janitors heard conversations that ambassadors missed. Repair technicians saw equipment that military inspectors never found. What about their new plasma weapons? Amanda asked. I got complete technical specifications, Ryan replied with a slight smile. Turns out their shielding has a critical weakness. If you hit it with the right frequency pulse, the whole system shuts down for about 30 seconds. More than enough time to disable their ships. Amanda added this information to her files. Earth's database now contained detailed technical information about every major weapon system in the galaxy. They knew how to build them, how to defend against them, and most importantly, how to defeat them. All gathered by humans who worked ordinary jobs in extraordinary places. The facility around them buzzed with quiet activity. Dozens of analysts sat at workstations, processing intelligence reports from agents scattered across known space. Some reviewed shipping manifests to track military buildups. Others analyzed communication patterns to predict political changes. A few specialized in cultural studies, learning about alien psychology and social structures. This was humanity's edge. While other species spent their time in formal diplomatic meetings, humans were everywhere else. They worked in alien factories, learning manufacturing techniques. They served on alien ships, studying their technology. They lived in alien cities, understanding their cultures from the inside out. Captain Tom Wilson arrived with the latest batch of reports from the Outer Rim territories. He had just returned from a year-long assignment with a Centauri exploration fleet, where he served as a navigation specialist. To his alien crewmates, he was just another human looking for adventure among the stars. They never suspected he was mapping every system they visited and recording every conversation they had. The Centauri found something interesting in the Orion Nebula, Tom reported to Amanda. They're calling it a derelict ship, but the energy readings suggest it's still partially active. They've set up a research station to study it. Amanda frowned. Unknown technology always worried her. Earth's advantage came from understanding what was already out there. Something completely new could change the balance of power in ways that nobody could predict. "Do we have any assets in their research division?" she asked. "Dr. Beth Carter just got assigned to the project," Tom replied. "She's been working with them for 3 years as a xenoarchaeologist. They trust her completely." Amanda felt some relief. Beth was one of their best deep cover agents, with advanced degrees in multiple scientific fields. If anyone could figure out what the Centauri had found, it would be her. The conversation was interrupted by an alert tone from the main communication center. General Mike Adams, the overall commander of Earth's intelligence operations, appeared on the central screen from his office in Washington. "We have a problem," he announced without any greeting. "Our monitoring stations in the outer galaxy have detected something unusual. Unknown ships are moving through the void between galaxies. They're not showing up on any alien sensors, but our equipment is picking up strange energy signatures." Amanda felt a chill run down her spine. For over 2 centuries, Earth had been content to watch and learn because the galaxy was relatively stable. Various species fought small wars and made temporary alliances, but nothing threatened the overall balance of power. If something new was entering the galaxy from outside, that could change everything. "How much time do we have?" she asked. "Unknown," General Adams replied. "These ships are moving slowly, but they're definitely heading toward inhabited systems. At current speed, they'll reach the outer colonies in about 2 years. Amanda looked around at her team of analysts and agents. For generations, they had been content to remain hidden, gathering information and staying out of galactic politics. But that luxury might be coming to an end. If a new threat was approaching, Earth might have no choice but to reveal itself. The empty chair in the Galactic Council chamber had always been part of a carefully planned strategy. But strategies sometimes had to change when the situation changed. Amanda wondered if the time was coming when that chair would finally be filled. She looked at the star maps floating around her, showing the positions of fleets and colonies across the galaxy. None of those species knew that humans were watching them. None of them suspected that Earth possessed the most complete intelligence network in galactic history. But they might be about to find out. The first attack came without warning. Commander Paul Martinez received the emergency signal while his stealth ship floated hidden in an asteroid field near the galaxy's edge. The USS Silent Runner was one of Earth's most advanced reconnaissance vessels, invisible to alien sensors and equipped with the best monitoring equipment human technology could produce. "Commander, we're getting distress calls from the Kepler mining colony," reported Lieutenant Susan Clark from her position at the communications station. "They're saying something about ships that came out of nowhere." Paul moved to the main display screen. The colony had been home to 30,000 aliens from a dozen different species. It was a peaceful place where beings worked together to extract rare minerals from the asteroids around a dying star. Now the screen showed nothing but empty space where the colony used to be. "Are you sure these coordinates are correct?" Paul asked. "Yes, sir," Susan replied, her voice shaking slightly. "The colony was definitely here 6 hours ago. Now there's nothing left. Not even debris. Paul had been monitoring the outer rim for 3 years, watching for signs of the unknown threat that Earth's deep space sensors had detected. He had seen alien conflicts before. Ships destroyed, colonies abandoned, populations relocated. But he had never seen anything like this. An entire colony had simply vanished without leaving any trace behind. "Take us closer," he ordered. "Full stealth mode. I want to know what happened here." The silent runner moved carefully through the empty space where Kepler colony had been. Advanced sensors swept the area, looking for any clue about what had occurred. What they found made Paul's blood run cold. The asteroid field itself was gone. Not destroyed or scattered, but consumed. Something had eaten the rock, the metal, the colony, and everything else in the area. Only empty space remained, as if nothing had ever existed there at all. "Sir," called out Chief Petty Officer Dan Parker from the sensor station, "I'm detecting some kind of residual energy signature. Whatever did this left behind traces of exotic particles. I've never seen anything like them before." Paul studied the sensor readings. The particles were unlike anything in Earth's extensive database of alien technologies. This was something completely new, something that the galaxy had never encountered before. "Get me a full spectrum analysis," Paul ordered, "and send everything back to command immediately. Priority Alpha classification." Back on Earth, President Helen Carter sat in the Situation Room deep beneath the White House. The emergency meeting had been called after Paul's report reached the Intelligence Division. Around the table sat the most powerful people in human government, all trying to understand what they were facing. "How many colonies have been attacked?" the president asked. General Mike Adams consulted his datapad. 17 confirmed attacks in the past month. All outer rim settlements, all completely consumed, leaving no trace behind. The aliens are calling them the Void Syndicate. Dr. Amanda Cole activated a holographic display showing the galaxy's spiral arms. Red markers indicated the locations of the attacks, forming a clear pattern along the galaxy's edge. "They're moving inward," she explained. "Each attack brings them closer to the core systems. At this rate, they'll reach the major alien civilizations within 5 years. And Earth," she paused, highlighting humanity's home system, "Earth will be in their path within 50 years. The room fell silent as everyone absorbed this information. For 2 centuries, Earth had been content to watch from the shadows while aliens handled their own problems. But this was different. This threat would eventually reach human space whether they wanted to be involved or not. "What do we know about their capabilities?" asked Secretary of Defense John Roberts. Amanda switched the display to show footage captured by alien security cameras before the colonies were destroyed. Dark ships moved through space like living shadows, their hulls seeming to absorb light itself. They attacked in perfect coordination, surrounding their targets before unleashing weapons that seemed to break down matter at the atomic level. "They adapt quickly," Amanda continued. "The aliens have tried every defensive strategy in their military handbooks. Energy shields, kinetic barriers, even nuclear weapons. Nothing works for more than 1 or 2 encounters. The Void Syndicate learns from each battle and adjusts their tactics accordingly." President Carter studied the images of alien fleets being systematically destroyed. Ships that had dominated space battles for centuries were being torn apart like paper toys. The poor, established powers of the galaxy were helpless against this new threat. "What about the Galactic Council?" she asked. "What's their response?" "Panic," General Adams replied bluntly. "They're calling emergency sessions every day, but they can't agree on anything. The Thrakari want to build a defensive line at the mid-rim. The Centauri think they should evacuate to the core systems. The Altarians are demanding that everyone contribute ships to a massive fleet. And none of it will work," Dr. Amanda Cole added. "I've run simulations based on all available data. Every strategy the aliens are considering follows predictable patterns. The Void Syndicate will adapt to them just like they adapted to everything else." President Carter looked around the table at her advisors. These were the people who had maintained Earth's secret for over 200 years. They had built the greatest intelligence network in galactic history. They had learned everything there was to know about alien technology, culture, and military tactics. But now they faced a choice that would change humanity's place in the universe forever. "Options?" she asked. "We could maintain our current position, suggested Director of Intelligence Carl Davis. Stay hidden and hope the aliens can handle this threat on their own. They can't, Amanda replied immediately. My analysis shows a 97% probability that the Void Syndicate will consume the entire galaxy within 20 years if current trends continue. Then we reveal ourselves, President Carter said quietly. We take our seat on the Galactic Council and help fight this threat. The room erupted in discussion. Some argued for continued secrecy. Others supported limited intervention. A few suggested that Earth should focus on building its own defenses and let the galaxy fend for itself. But President Carter was already thinking beyond those options. Humanity had spent 2 centuries learning from every species in the galaxy. They had studied every military conflict, analyzed every tactical innovation, and understood every strategic doctrine. More importantly, they had developed their own approaches that no alien species had ever seen. The empty chair in the Galactic Council chamber had been part of a long-term strategy, but sometimes strategies had to change when the situation changed. The time for watching was ending. The time for action had begun. The emergency session of the Galactic Council was chaos. Representatives from across the galaxy filled the crystal chamber of Station Nexus, their voices creating a symphony of panic and confusion. Ambassador Zekthor watched in dismay as species that had been allies for centuries now argued bitterly about how to face the Void Syndicate threat. The Altarian home system has fallen, announced Secretary Vixana, her voice cutting through the noise. The massive chamber fell silent as the weight of her words sank in. Altair Prime had been one of the most heavily defended worlds in the galaxy, protected by 3 full battle fleets and orbital defense platforms. Impossible, whispered Council Member Thraxul of the warrior species known for their military might. Altair Prime had defenses that could stop an entire armada. How could it simply be gone? Vixana activated the main display screen, showing the final transmission from Altair Prime. The image was grainy and filled with static, but everyone could see the dark ships of the Void Syndicate surrounding the planet like hungry predators. Then the transmission cut to black. The attack lasted 4 hours, Vixana continued. 3 billion souls lived on Altair Prime. Now there is nothing but empty space where the planet used to be. The chamber erupted in panic. Representatives demanded immediate action, but nobody could agree on what that action should be. The Centauri wanted to evacuate all Outer Rim colonies. The Thrakari insisted on launching massive counterattacks. The Insectoid Hive Collective suggested building fortress worlds that could withstand any assault. Ambassador Zekthor felt despair settling over him like a cold blanket. He had lost his home world, his family, everything he had ever known. But worse than his personal loss was the growing certainty that the galaxy was doomed. Every military strategy they had tried had failed. Every weapon they had deployed had been useless. The Void Syndicate adapted to everything they threw at it. We need new ideas, he said, standing slowly from his seat. Everything we have tried has failed. We must think differently if we are to survive. There are no new ideas, replied General Korthex of the Thrakari Empire. We have the finest military minds in the galaxy. If they cannot find a solution, then no solution exists. That was when the chamber doors opened. A figure in a crisp blue uniform walked into the chamber with calm confidence. The being was clearly from a species that most representatives had never seen before. Tall and bipedal, with pale skin and short, brown hair, the creature moved with the easy grace of someone completely comfortable in their own body. The alien walked directly to the center of the chamber, toward a chair that had sat empty for over 2 centuries. Every eye in the room followed the figure as it approached the human section of the council. My apologies for the delay, the being said, its voice clear and strong through the translation systems. We have been getting acquainted with the neighborhood, Captain. Jake Morrison took his seat in the chair that had been waiting for him for over 200 years. He looked around the chamber at the hundreds of alien faces staring at him in shock and confusion. I am Captain Jake Morrison, representing the planet Earth and the human species, he announced formally. We are ready to take our place in this council and to help fight the threat that faces us all. The silence that followed was complete. No one moved, No one spoke. The appearance of a human representative after centuries of absence was shocking enough, but his calm confidence in the face of galactic disaster was even more surprising. Ambassador Zekthor was the first to find his voice. "Where have you been?" he demanded. "For over 200 years your seat has remained empty. Your species has ignored every communication, missed every session, and now you simply walk in as if nothing has happened?" Jake smiled slightly. "We have not been absent, Ambassador Zekthor. We have been present in ways you never realized." He activated his personal communication device, and the chamber's main screens came to life. Images began appearing from across the galaxy. Surveillance footage from Thrakari military bases showing human technicians maintaining equipment. Security camera recordings from Centauri trading posts with human workers in the background. Personnel files from dozens of species showing humans employed in various positions throughout known space. "We have been your janitors," Jake continued as more images appeared. "Your mechanics, your traders, your researchers. We have worked alongside you, learned from you, and studied you for over 2 centuries. The truth hit the assembled representatives like a physical blow. Humans had not been absent from galactic civilization. They had been everywhere, hidden in plain sight, gathering information and understanding while maintaining perfect anonymity. "Impossible," breathed Secretary Vixana. "Our security protocols would have detected such infiltration." "Your security protocols were designed to detect threats," Jake replied. "We were never a threat. We were simply neighbors who wanted to understand our new community before introducing ourselves properly." Admiral Sarah Murphy's voice came through Jake's communication device. "Captain Morrison, fleet deployment is complete. All ships are in position and ready for your signal." Jake nodded and looked back at the stunned alien representatives. "We have not been idle during our time of observation. We have learned much about your technologies, your tactics, and your capabilities. More importantly, we have developed new approaches based on everything we have seen." The main screens changed to show space around Station Nexus. Slowly, ships began appearing as their stealth systems deactivated. Dozens, then hundreds, then thousands of vessels materialized around the station. They were unlike any ships the aliens had ever seen, combining design elements from multiple species into something entirely new. These ships incorporate technologies and strategies learned from every major civilization in the galaxy, Jake explained. But they also represent uniquely human approaches to warfare that we have developed in secret. The alien representatives stared in amazement at the massive fleet surrounding their station. The ships moved with precision and coordination that seemed almost impossible. Their formations were unlike anything in standard galactic military doctrine. Ambassador Zekthor felt something he had not experienced since the fall of Altair Prime. Hope. For the first time since the Void Syndicate had appeared, he was looking at something truly new, a species that had approached the galactic community in a way that no one had ever imagined. "You have been watching us," he said slowly, "learning our strengths and weaknesses, understanding how we think and how we fight." "Yes," Jake replied, simply. "And now we are ready to show you what humans have learned about warfare during our time as students." The empty chair was empty no more. After 2 centuries of patient observation, humanity had finally taken its place in galactic civilization. But they had not come as supplicants or junior partners. They had come as equals who understood their neighbors better than those neighbors understood themselves. The Void Syndicate had adapted to every strategy the galaxy could devise, but they had never faced an enemy that had spent 200 years learning from every species in known space while developing entirely new approaches to combat. The real war was about to begin. The Battle of the Void Threshold would be remembered as the day everything changed. Colonel Danny White stood on the bridge of the human command ship, watching as the largest fleet in galactic history prepared for combat. Ships from dozens of DI species floated in formation alongside human vessels, creating a wall of steel and energy between the Void Syndicate and the core worlds. But this was not like any battle the galaxy had ever seen before. "All ships, this is Colonel White, Danny," announced over the communication channels. Remember, we are not fighting like any single species today. We are fighting like all of them. The Void Syndicate fleet approached like a dark cloud across space. Their ships moved in perfect formation, just as they had during every previous battle. They expected the galactic forces to follow standard military doctrine, form battle lines, exchange long-range fire, try to break through enemy formations with superior numbers or firepower. Instead, the human-led fleet scattered. Ambassador Zekthor watched from the command center aboard Station Nexus as the defensive formation seemed to fall apart completely. Ships broke away from the main group and disappeared in different directions. To an observer using traditional military thinking, it looked like total chaos. "What are they doing?" demanded General Korthex of the Thrakari Empire. "They are abandoning their positions." Captain Jake Morrison stood calmly beside the alien commanders, monitoring the battle through multiple communication channels. "They are not abandoning anything, General. They are taking positions that your enemy has never seen before." The Void Syndicate moved forward confidently, expecting to face the same predictable tactics they had encountered and defeated dozens of times before. Their dark ships spread out to surround what appeared to be a broken and disorganized enemy. Orcs. That was when the trap closed. The scattered human ships had not fled. They had positioned themselves in a three-dimensional web around the Void Syndicate fleet. As the enemy moved forward, human vessels appeared above, below, and behind them. But they did not attack immediately. Instead, they began transmitting. "Psychological warfare," Jake explained to the confused alien observers. "Something we learned from studying the Centauri conflict with the Vegan republics. The Void Syndicate adapts to weapons and tactics, but they have never faced an enemy that attacks their ability to adapt itself. The transmissions were not random noise. They were carefully designed signals that interfered with the Void Syndicate's coordination networks. The dark ships began to move erratically as their perfect formations broke down. For the first time in their campaign of destruction, they seemed confused and uncertain. Lieutenant Susan Clark coordinated the electronic warfare assault from her position aboard the Silent Runner. "Target their communication frequencies," she ordered her team. "But keep changing the attack pattern. Do not let them adapt to any single approach." This was the key to humanity's strategy. Every previous battle had followed predictable patterns that allowed the Void Syndicate to learn and counter their enemies' tactics. But humans had studied every conflict in galactic history. They knew how to fight like Thrakari warriors when the situation called for it. They could use Centauri hit-and-run tactics when those were more effective. They could employ Altarian defensive strategies when holding ground was important. Most importantly, they could switch between all of these approaches faster than their enemy could adapt. Commander Paul Martinez led a squadron of mixed human and alien ships in a coordinated strike against the Void Syndicate's left flank. His formation used hive collective swarming tactics to overwhelm enemy point defenses, then switched to Thrakari assault patterns to break through their lines, and finally employed human innovations that no alien species had ever developed. "Target their adaptation centers," Paul ordered as his ships closed with the enemy. "Intelligence reports indicate they process tactical information through specialized command nodes. If we can disrupt those, they will lose their ability to learn from our attacks." The battle raged across 3 star systems as human commanders demonstrated warfare techniques that seemed impossible to traditional military minds. They fought like shapeshifters, constantly changing their approach to prevent the Void Syndicate from developing effective countermeasures. Dr. Beth Carter, still undercover with the Centauri Research Division, transmitted critical intelligence about Void Syndicate ship construction. "Their hulls absorb energy, but they have difficulty processing multiple conflicting signals simultaneously," she reported. "Recommend synchronized attacks using different energy frequencies." Admiral Sarah Murphy coordinated the largest phase of the assault from her flagship. She had spent 30 years studying alien military doctrine, and now she put all of that knowledge to use. Her fleet moved like a living organism, constantly adapting and evolving as the battle progressed. "They are learning to counter our electronic warfare," reported her communications officer. "Enemy coordination is improving." "Then we switch tactics," Sarah replied calmly. All ships, implement Pattern 7. Hit them with everything we learned from the Rigelian border wars. The human fleet suddenly changed its entire approach. Ships that had been conducting electronic warfare switched to kinetic bombardment. Vessels that had been using energy weapons deployed gravity mines. The Void Syndicate, which had begun to adapt to humanity's initial strategy, found themselves facing completely different tactics. This continued for hours. Every time the Void Syndicate began to counter human tactics, the humans switched to something else. They had 2 centuries of military knowledge to draw from, plus innovations that no alien species had ever imagined. Slowly, the tide of battle turned. Void Syndicate ships that had seemed invincible began to fall. Their perfect adaptability, which had made them unstoppable against predictable enemies, became a weakness when faced with opponents who refused to be predictable. "Enemy fleet is retreating," announced a Thrakari communications officer, his voice filled with amazement. "They are actually retreating." The dark ships of the Void Syndicate pulled back toward the edge of the galaxy, moving faster than they had during their advance. For the first time since their appearance, they had encountered something they could not quickly adapt to defeat. Ambassador Zekthor stared at the tactical display in wonder. The impossible had happened. The unstoppable enemy had been stopped. Not destroyed, but forced to retreat and reconsider their approach. "How?" he asked Jake Morrison. "How did you accomplish what all our combined fleets could not?" Jake smiled as he watched the last Void Syndicate ships disappear into dark space. "We spent 200 years learning from everyone in the galaxy. We studied every military conflict, analyzed every tactical innovation, and understood every strategic doctrine. But most importantly, we learned to think like students rather than teachers." The aftermath of the battle changed everything. The Galactic Council, which had been paralyzed by panic and internal arguments, suddenly found itself working together more effectively than ever before. Human advisors, no longer hiding their true nature, shared their accumulated knowledge freely. Species that had been enemies for centuries began cooperating as humans demonstrated how different approaches to warfare could be combined into something greater than the sum of their parts. The galaxy had not just gained a new ally. It had gained a species that understood all of its existing allies better than they understood themselves. The empty chair in the council chamber remained filled. Captain Jake Morrison took his place as Earth's permanent representative, but he was no longer alone. Human advisors worked with every major species, sharing 2 centuries of accumulated wisdom while continuing to learn and adapt. The Void Syndicate would return eventually. Everyone knew that. But when they did, they would face a galaxy that had learned to fight like humanity fought, unpredictably, adaptably, and most importantly, together. The Watchers had become teachers, the students had become leaders, and the galaxy would never be the same.